How's it going, guys? It's Nutshell here, and we're going to be talking about some of the problems that Tarkov's PvE mode has right now, at least when I'm recording this video. So these are some of the things that I found really annoying about PvE Tarkov and some of the things that just get on my nerves every now and again. Now, the game mode itself is pretty good and it opens up the actual opportunity to play a much simpler way, and of course a lot of players just finding it very, very casual. I've enjoyed it. I think it's a great experience, but there are some gripes, and those are the ones that today's video is all about. If you're enjoying any of the PvE Tarkov, or you want to see some more content about Tarkov in general, then make sure to subscribe down below, and let's get into it. So number one, there is obviously the load times. This is probably the biggest problem within Tarkov right now, whether you play PvP or PvE. The load times themselves are just horrendous. They are one of the worst things that I think anyone is going to be seeing when they jump into the game. It's simply just not usable when you have to wait 20 minutes to get into some raids occasionally, depending on when you're joining into raids. If you're going onto far off servers at midnight when no one else is playing on a weekday or something like that, just to get into a raid, it's not good because you got 180 ping, 200 ping, maybe even higher to be able to actually play, which for the majority of it, when you're trying to play a hardcore survival, it's not good. And of course, if you're playing at peak time in your own region and you've only got your server selected, it feels horrendous because you're waiting 20 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever it might be, and there's no real way around it. That is simply just luck of the draw. Sometimes you can get into a raid really quickly, sometimes it takes 15 minutes, sometimes it takes 10. It's very inconsistent and it absolutely sucks. And it's definitely something that we, I guess, can expect, because I guess Nikita and BSG didn't really think about actually opening up the PvE mode to everyone and only a select portion, which is why we've seen such horrible load times, because there aren't as many servers as they prepped for, because, you know, great idea to introduce some very, very expensive and exclusive stuff to a brand new exclusive mode. Yeah, I think we all know the drama at this point, but it is an absolute pain, and they definitely have to work on it in the next few months because it's really hurting the overall game and trying to actually play, and everyone wants to just get into the raid. It's what Tarkov's all about. It's about going in and doing what you want to do, not sitting around waiting, twiddling your thumbs and doing nothing for 20 minutes. So yeah, I definitely found it to be super, super annoying, and obviously if you're playing at different time zones, it might not affect you as bad. If you're playing in your only time to play, if you're more of a casual player, you only can play during peak hours when you get home from work, it's horrendous, and that's probably the majority of people. So yeah, I think that is definitely an issue and it needs to be solved at some point. There definitely needs to be some more servers, and yeah, it's been a pain, that's for sure. And you can spend, you know, hours of your day, if you're playing for the entire day, for example, on weekends, just literally sat waiting in raid, or waiting to get into a raid. And then you get into the raid, and especially with the boss event, you might last 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, maybe you'll survive. But, you know, when you're only playing the game for a third of the time because you're waiting around, it's not good. So that is kind of my biggest issue with Tarkov PVE at the moment. Of course, it is starting to get available as a purchase, I believe, as part of the Tarkov news. So if you didn't already know that, it will be available as like a DLC option that any player who plays Tarkov will be able to purchase it at a later date. At the moment, it's available for EOD and, of course, the Unheard True Believer Edition, which, yeah, I mean, it's what it is at the moment, but at least it will be available, and I think it's a great way to get more people to enjoy Tarkov again and not have to deal with so many cheaters. That's one of the positives of playing against the AI. They technically do cheat on you occasionally, shooting you through bushes and shit, but at the same time, at least it's not an actual player who's for some reason cheating, and maybe they do on PvE, but it doesn't affect anyone else, so I'm not bothered. But with that being said, there are a couple of other things as well, and that really comes down to the actual mechanics themselves. Now, there are obviously ways of making a ton of money in the game, and they are very easy to be able to do. There's very safe routes, and there's some PMC spawns that are regular. They really only roam in certain areas of the map, and it kind of creates this very stale gameplay eventually when you get used to where the PMC spawn, because they don't roam the map. There's no dynamic things. They're always in some form of a spot. Maybe they've moved a little bit, 100 meters to the left, whatever it is. They really don't move a whole lot. So, you know, you can find routes around them, and often you'll take these routes because it's easier, or maybe you're trying to get a task done, and it doesn't give you that kind of thrill like you would when you first start playing the game mode, because you don't know where they are or where they spawn. So maybe adding in an option that will actually allow the PMCs to move around a bit more would make the game feel a little bit more dynamic and kind of get into more engaging gunfights than what you normally would see when you're playing the game. So I think that could definitely benefit it. It's not a terrible thing at the moment, and I'm sure it's probably just because it's in its infancy as a game mode, but it definitely could be improved, and hopefully it's one of those things that we do see in the future. Now, there is some more. The one thing that I found was that you get into gunfights with PMCs, and often most of their gear is completely unusable. Things like guns, weapons, that sort of thing. Most of it is unusable unless you want to run the chance of your gun jamming every 2 fights that you get into. You can't use their guns. Now, I guess that this is a good thing to have into the game. However, there is no chance of you actually finding a fully available weapon, other than if you find one in an actual crate, or if you manage to get one in your scav case. Maybe you get a weapon that you find just lying around in one of the marked rooms. Whatever it is, that's kind of the only way you can get a fully kitted out weapon, or at least a partially kitted out weapon, and then you got to equip it yourself. Now, that's not the worst thing in the world, and certainly it's cool to not just see the meta guns everywhere, because, you know, when you play PvP, that's all it is. But it would be nice occasionally, as like a rare kind of thing, that you do find a weapon on a PMC that isn't just terrible durability. It would be nice to have that, but unfortunately at the moment we don't, and I don't think it's the biggest issue, as I said, but it is something that would be cool. Maybe you find a really cool weapon that is lying around, and it actually is full durability. Maybe it's taken off a couple and you have to repair it a little bit, but at least it's not completely trash. But yeah, that's one thing that could be nice to have. Something else that I did notice when I was kind of going through, and it's been an issue in Tarkov for a while, is the quest lines. Now, quest lines, they lead on to other quests, obviously, hence the quest line, but they're often quite limited in where you actually get your information for what task you're going to get next and the ultimate reward that you get at the end. And maybe some people like that, but I do find that if you already know it, or maybe you know what quests you need to get, but then there's a load of prerequisite quests that you already have to complete, you have to go onto third-party websites in order to actually find yourself the actual quest line and then work your way through all of the quests, and there's no real tracking within the game. It'd be cool to be able to select the quest which you want to complete and then work your way through all of the tasks that you need in order to complete that quest. Whether there's a way that they can introduce it into the game, I think it would be cool to have, but it's not a necessity. It would just be a nice kind of, I guess, user experience for people who aren't interested in not knowing what the quest is. They just want to get to the quest, do the quests, and then, yeah, get out with whatever the requirement or reward or whatever you get from the actual quest line itself. I think this would be kind of cool. And of course, you could always toggle it off if you're not interested. It's the PvE game mode. It's supposed to be play how you want to play and not be forced into playing with meta guns or whatever it be. So those were just some of the things that I think could be good for the game. Obviously you might completely disagree, and I'm interested to see what your guys' thoughts actually are when you play. What are you finding that is super annoying, or things that are just broken about the game itself? Of course we got things like the AI being a bit crap, but Nikita has addressed that will potentially be coming with AI improvement, so it could solve some of these issues that we have with, you know, things just running forward and then standing around, spinning around. You know, this sort of thing definitely needs to be addressed, but it seems like they may do that in the future, and once again, it is in its infancy, so I'm not expecting it to be perfect, but there's definitely things that we do need. So I'll be interested to see what you guys actually say in the comment section. I'll be reading them all. But with that being said, I think that's it for today's video. If you like PvE content, you like PvP content, then that's what we will be doing on the channel. So make sure that you do subscribe once again. And if you're interested in watching some ways to make yourself some rubles so it makes the game just that little bit easier, then this video on screen will be really useful for that. And I will see you in the next one. Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.